So after doing my research on gendered layoffs in the economy, basically this preference for firms to lay off women first instead of men is probably the single most sneakiest and prominent way in which gender inequality still lives large in the corporate world. And I say this for two reasons. First, gendered layoffs are not reported. Layoff data are not reported. They're not required of the vast majority of firms. We only have aggregate level data of layoffs, or basically what we call unemployment, by institutes like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which shows an aggregate level amount of unemployment in the economy. But in economics, it's commonly assumed that these people who don't have jobs right now will pretty much find a job later on. Now, we can trace for other things in gender inequality. We can trace gendered pay inequality by basically looking at the salaries that people are paid in a given firm. We can also trace gendered hiring by looking at the current employment gender ratio among employees in a given firm. So if a firm overwhelmingly prefers to hire men, we're going to find out if we look at their employee pool and find that it's 100% men. But layoffs are sneaky. Layoffs are not traced. They're the people who have left, and that data isn't tracked, and it's super hard to get out of firms. Second, gendered layoffs are the sneakiest way and one of the most important ways that gender inequality lives large because it undermines existing diversity measures. So we have a lot of diversity and affirmative action policies where we require firms to hire more women, and they might abide by those, but nobody traces what happens to those women after they enter the employment of a firm. They can still be paid equally, and that's still not where gender inequality would reside. We might find, for instance, that a firm decides to hire a lot of women, so they look really good on the surface that, hey, maybe 50% of their employee pool is women. That looks really good. But it could be that this firm decides to fire a lot of these women, basically in short notice, or whenever there's the prospect of recession, or whenever there is some type of major organizational transition. This is the bit that people don't pay a lot of attention to. What happens to these women after they get employed as part of a diversity policy or as part of any affirmative action policy.